dude. So right before we started this, we were just talking about sensitivity in the workplace and empathy for employees in the workplace when you're an entrepreneur and a boss. First of all, I'll point out for people that don't know you, you've been an entrepreneur a while, and you do a lot of different things. So many now that I have to have a list. So you started off in production manufacturing as an employee, right, in Chrysler?
Yep, exactly.
And then you went and you opened CoffeeJunkiez, added PizzaJunkiez, Scared Rabbit, Vickers, a printing and publishing company, Double J Brandz, and the Julius Filez Podcast.
Yep.
Did I miss anything?
I mean, there's a couple small businesses in the middle of all of that are like not public knowledge, but it's all built around servicing the franchisees.
Oh, right. Yeah,
yep.
Okay. So, I mean, we can feel free to talk about any of those as you want throughout this whole thing. But generally speaking, there's a lot of people out there that want to be an entrepreneur or that are just starting out or that have been doing it a long time, but like hearing what other people have to say about it. And one interesting thing happening now, we'll just go straight to relevant, is our like socio-political and culture has changed since me and you started a business.
So much.
It's changed a lot. And one thing that's changed is the level of working with your employees, the level of accommodation and empathy and sensitivity that is expected from a boss. Well, that's all I'm going to say about it. What do you think about this whole shift?
Well, I mean, because it's funny that like more than half of the people are walking around with iPhones, and Steve Jobs could not have built today what he built. Nobody would have accepted his type of leadership today. That it was very much dictatorial. This generation could not have handled his style of leadership, and it has been a major shift. I think in some ways I was primed for it. When I went into Chrysler, I thought that I was just a dumb blue-collar worker, and I'm not insulting myself, and I'm not insulting anybody that there's nothing wrong with earning a living with your hands. At some point, something shifted inside of me, and I had a desire to use my brain, and my answer was to become a union rep. I saw it as, I've always believed everybody deserves a second chance. I wanted to have some semblance of control of my actual future, and being a part of union leadership gave me that ability. And when I became a union rep, I represented 500 people. I was the in-house lawyer. And I mean, candidly, I was good at my job, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the investigation and finding out all of the nuances and the circumstances and taking care of people. Servant-style leadership, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
That's an interesting first step into entrepreneurship. So you started with like the cool stuff, like leadership and helping people. Mm-hmm. That's great. And then you decided to scale up from there.
And, well, yes and no. Like, if it had not been for my son getting cancer, I would have. I'm very positive that it had not been for my son getting cancer, I would have been reelected, and I would have entirely, my course of life would have been inside of the union and leadership inside of the union. Long story short, he was diagnosed with cancer 30 days after I was elected. He died 30 days before reelection.
Oh, man.
And unions, politics are politics. It doesn't matter whether they're local politics or national politics. It's still politics, and it is a blood sport. And I was not up for the re-election campaign.
Sure.
And I lost.
Yeah. Shit, I'm surprised you show up to anything.
Well, but I felt betrayed. And that was in the midst of the grieving process and realizing that I had went from 3 years of representing 500 people and dealing with my son, and my brain just actively go, go, go. Then I had to go back to the floor I mean, at that point, I had enough seniority. I wasn't pushing that button 2,000 times a day. I had about 20 machines that I was just responsible for keeping active. But it went from high alert on my brain down to my brain had way too much time for bad things to happen. I created CoffeeJunkiez out of necessity to give my brain something to actually latch onto.
Yeah, wait a minute. So most people don't think like that. So losing your son and your like job that has a lot of purpose and all at the same time, that would have crushed most people. I think most people would have fell right into apathy or feeling sorry for themselves or or felt like a victim. And how did you find, what did you do to find a different path than that? That's a real easy give up situation. Nobody even would have blamed you.
Yeah. And you know what, Dustin, I don't have a great answer for that other than because I'm like, I'm no better or worse than anybody else. I am different. My brain has always been, I've always been wired slightly different. I could look out into the future and see that if something didn't change in my environment, I could see bad things happening. And I still had his twin son or his twin brother and daughter and wife. And it was like, I have responsibilities. I don't have the luxury of being able to crumble like that. I have other responsibilities.
That's it. That's probably the best reason I've ever heard. You know, I hear a lot of people tell me they don't want to have kids or get married. and I think to myself, I thought those same thoughts. And I think that, I think your example is a very good example. I think Jordan Peterson actually says it best. He says, wait until the hardest times. And who's going to get you through, you know? And I think that reason you gave is just as good a reason as any, man. People depended on you.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and don't get me wrong. I mean, at that time I was still very much, and I'm for everything that I am, because nobody's able to actually box me in. I still very much a traditional lifestyle where that was the agreement. Marcia was able to actually stay home and raise the kids, and I went out and I was the breadwinner. At that point in life, it was still very much just a conservative, traditional life in general. But
yeah, so they were 100% relying on you for that.
Exactly.
That's huge, man. And you did it.
I mean, to be honest, that because I've told this to a couple people, everything is about perspective. I looked at this and it was like, because I don't subscribe to the victim mentality. There are children that lose their entire families in the blink of an eye, and they still are able to move forward in life. So it was like, okay, I'm not going to deny myself grieving, albeit I processed it in a different way than a lot of people, whether people agree with it or not. It was how I processed it so that I could live up to my responsibilities of still being a man, of protecting and providing, and working is all I've ever known. I mean, that there are so many things I look at my father and I'm like, I wish he would have taught me this or showed me this or explained this. But he explained responsibility and he explained high character and hard work, and so working is all I've ever known. And I mean, that was the easy part, because all I've ever known is get up every day and work.
Yeah, I can relate to that. My family was blue collar as well, and that's how my dad solved problems. If shit would go wrong, you just work harder.
Exactly. You worked through your problems.
Yeah, if that didn't fix it, then you just worked harder.
Yes.
Yeah, I understand. But that work ethic, man, it's always been valuable. But in today's world, could you imagine a young person that has that kind of work ethic? Like, how well are they going to do in this market? Oh man,
I think they'll kill it.
Yeah.
I was talking to one of my guys about this, and you know that people are saying I'm going to piss people off when I say this. It's not. That's not what I'm getting at. Everybody has a natural fight or flight response, and generally there should be a certain amount of balance there. But we have a generation of people that have never really had to fight for much. So the flight response is very active, and that normal, or that muscle has been actively exercised. But where there has been no struggle, there's never been that much of an opportunity for that fight response or that fight muscle to actually step up and activate. And that is that work ethic, that push, that fight for something. Everything has just come so easy that muscle is not active in them. So if you find the couple of them that are willing to fight for it, like you're automatically going to excel. I mean, I posted on Facebook today, I was like, the secret to success, just be above average. I mean, like,
Yeah, right.
like,
Yeah. Well, above what average used to be. Now that's exceptional. Yeah, I agree with you 100%, man. There's like definitely a hypersensitivity and a lack of struggle. And then that leads to a lack of tenacity. People lose their fighting spirit, not just at work either, like in politics and in friendships, relationships. You could see people kind of losing their fighting spirit. It's almost like things do need to get a little challenging.
well, and what kills me is that, like, when we started business, we didn't have access to all of these experts to tap into their experience.
No, so we were shooting in the dark, bro.
Yeah. So I'm looking at it today and I'm like, you would think that the success rate in entrepreneurship would be increasing because of
It's
the heavy
online.
access. Yeah. I mean, if you
I used to call up companies to try to get managers' numbers and then use the managers' numbers to try to get VPs' numbers to try to get a hold of a person that owned a business and be like, hey, I own a business. How do you do this? Like, and now people are like, oh, there's the answer.
Exactly.
Anybody could do it, but people aren't doing it.
Because it's still easier said than done.
Yeah.
You can still listen to somebody
yeah.
tell you how it's going to be.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter until you actually put it into practice and they're like, oh, no shit. Like when
And
they
then it
told you
goes
it's
wrong.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
And shit, everything in business goes wrong. I think there's only been a couple of things, I'm probably going to jinx them right now, that I've ever done that just went exactly as I planned them to. And I was just like,
Yeah, you probably better knock on some wood.
like, that's suspicious as hell.
Well, and I mean, because I can look, I'm not the plan to fail, or what is it? Fail to plan or plan to fail. I'm not going to deny that you should plan, but like a 5-year plan, like that was one of my biggest mistakes. When I got into business, I had this 5-year plan. I'm going to have 50 stores in 5 years. And I look back at myself and I'm like, you fucking moron. Like there's too many variables over a 5-year period. A 5-year plan is ridiculous. Like, have a big vision, but probably better just keep at a 1-year plan and understand that you're going to course correct every month, if not every week, trying to steer towards that 1-year plan.
That's the truth. Yeah, 5-year plan needs to sound something like go in this direction.
And that's exactly it.
That's about all you get.
That was one of the things where, because, actions speak louder than words, but words matter.
Yeah.
I don't like goals. I don't like the word goals, because either you're setting bullshit goals and you're easily attainable, or you're not setting realistic goals, and then you're going to beat yourself up mentally because you're not attaining them.
Okay.
So I look at it as targets and a direction. Like, I know what direction I'm going. I know what the target is, and I have a realistic expectation for how long it's going to take for me to hit milestones and get there. But do I set goals? No, I just don't like the word itself, because it's so hard to gauge what is a realistic goal. And then, so if your goal is 100%, well, what is 110%? Because you want to have it a little bit of a stretch, but if you're setting 80%, you're bullshitting yourself. And if you're setting 200%, well, you're just setting yourself up for mental failure. So I look at those words, and the other word that I've tried to kill out of my vocabulary is try. Because I'm like, I tell people, quit trying to do something and just do it, because try leaves the opportunity open for failure, and you can do it if you just set your mind to actually doing it. Yeah,
that's a good attitude to have. How important do you think attitude is for an entrepreneur?
Everything. That's it, and we get back into that words and gurus, and I mean because I don't necessarily see anything wrong with those, but your mindset, and that's right, we're getting back to that word where it's a cliche to hear it today, but it is everything. Like,
it is, yeah.
How you look at every single thing is going to affect, like, I go back into motivation is like, motivation's bullshit. I mean, you need discipline. But discipline comes down to that mindset of doing the necessary, like doing the hard thing, even when you don't want to actually do the hard thing. It's having the discipline to get up and actually do it every day, because success is built on repetition for an extended amount of time, doing the same thing for an extended amount of time to go after a result. That You go back to those old things, nothing in life worth having. I mean, if you don't put enough, I'm fucking up the saying, but you know what I'm saying.
Oh yeah. Those expressions and cliches, they stick around for a reason.
For a reason, exactly.
There's truth there.
But it's digging into the deeper meanings of, because delayed gratification, I mean, it's a real thing. Like, you just don't. If everybody could open up their eyes and be like, oh, I want to be a millionaire today, and then wake up tomorrow and check your bank account. Oh, there's $1 million. Oh, well, I mean, okay, it's that easy. Everybody just has to think like that. No, that's not how it works.
Yeah, well, since we're on the expressions and cliches, man, what's the one that most people give up what they want most for what they want now? That's just it, man. That delayed gratification you're talking about, like, you can just take the easy choice.
Yep.
And why I think it's important, and maybe you'll agree with me, for an entrepreneur and a business owner, is when you take that leap and become that, it's not like you get to hide all of your faults. It's the opposite.
Yep.
A business will expose the shit out of you to yourself. And you just... Man, you have to take those struggles head on voluntarily.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have to become competent. You don't have a choice. You can't hide from it when you own a business.
No.
Is that how you feel about it?
Oh, absolutely. Well, the thing is that I would not have survived if I had let pride and ego get in the way. Like, I had to ask for help. I had to accept, like, I made a lot of mistakes. If I didn't ask for help, I was not going to survive. So if I was not willing to show high character, if I was not willing to be an open book and be willing to be introspective and admit my own mistakes, like, if I have to wait for somebody else to tell me what my mistakes are, then I'm not figuring it out.
Yeah, once the market tells you, you're done.
It is exactly it.
Yeah. So, and that's, well, when I was first getting into business, you'd already been in a little while.
And I didn't know which one. I knew we started in business in general right around the same time period.
Well,
in general,
in like 2008, I opened my first business, which was a bar. But then I think we were talking about this property during the property crash.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that whole thing was crazy. Bailing out banks, and property was free everywhere.
And I didn't. I jumped in 2005. I didn't know dick about dick. I was just like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, so you started at higher values across the board, and then shit fell out from under you shortly after you got started.
Yeah.
And you survived that. How did you survive that?
Sacrifice.
That is a tough starting line.
Yeah. I was hugely fortunate that I found my mentor. And I'm going to be honest, probably the only reason that I actually survived is because this man has always been, he would give me his stories, and I had to find the lessons in the stories. But Mick never told me to do anything. The one time in my life that the man got close to telling me to do anything was the one time that I'm very glad that I listened. Because he called me, and I was in the Whiteland store, and he said, Jason, if you don't shut it all down and come back to Kokomo, you're going to lose everything. And in that moment, I shut down the Indianapolis location, I shut down the Whiteland location, I shut down the 2 locations in Muncie, and I came back to Kokomo, and it got down to the 2 locations in Kokomo. And had I not done it, I might very well have absolutely lost it all. And those are tough
decisions. Man, God.
And coming from the union rep, that I literally had to close down operations and lay people off, and it was gut wrenching. But then we get back into where you're talking about the sayings and cliches, and this one really rang true with me, that if you are not willing to sacrifice for what you want becomes the sacrifice.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, that's true. I don't think I've heard that one. That's a logical expression. I like it.
Yeah, well, and it was just what was most important to me. I mean, I have big dreams and ambitions, and I wanted locations, and that's how you grow, but that wasn't it. I left Chrysler and said, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to be in business. Well, it doesn't matter whether I got 6 locations or 1 location. I mean, being in business is being in business, and
That's
living
right,
to survive another day. I mean, that's...
And you have to.
Yes, and because that's, I think most people are, and I've said that before, and people go into business and they've got these delusions of grandeur that they're going to build something and they're going to cash out for these multi-millions of dollars, and then they're just going to ride off into the sunset. And I'm like, that's just not how business is. That's not how small business is. Winning is being able to get up the next day and play the game.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely a lot of that to it. So did you find that whole experience help you grow? Was it extremely useful for you? Because you obviously didn't hang out in survival mode all that long. You found your way up. Do you think it helped you get success faster than you would have?
It's like it beat it into me. I had no business having 6 locations. And then that's something that I will very much write about in my book. I had no business having 6 locations because I had no systems, no foundation to have 6 operations resting on. Mm-hmm. And that was the pride part, that once it all burnt down, I had to go back and sort through that rubble. And when I sorted through that rubble is when I realized I didn't have any right to have those things because I didn't have any systems to support them. And when I say that, I would go into a store and I would train the trainer, and then that trainer would start training the other baristas, and then I would go and work on another store, and then you would have turnover, and then the trainer would train somebody else without me there, and then you would have lost in translation of it, and then before you know it, 2 trainers deep were not trained by me, lost in translation of that training. I had no training system. My first gen of an actual training system was literally just picking up a camera and I know that this is going to be raw and this is going to be ugly, but at least everybody is going to hear the exact same words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And I didn't get to that point until I had literally burned it all down.
Yeah. And then you did some expanding after that. How'd that go for you?
And that was the, after I had started to actually build the systems, that was the test. Is that, I bought Lexi's, or at least I bought one of the operations, and I saw that as a flawed business model, and I saw that if I when I say flawed business model, because I'm not trying to, everybody has to make their own. I could see that the business model was heavy in the summertime and weak in the wintertime, and I need more dependability than that. My menu and business model is built to where I really have even revenues throughout the year. Yeah. It's just a flexing of from one product line to another. So when I went in there, I was like, okay, I think my business will fix this. And I brought in CoffeeJunkiez to make it Lexi's Drink Barn powered by CoffeeJunkiez, and the revenue actually smoothed out. And it was like, okay, I'm on to something because at least I've bought something shaky and I've stabilized it.
That's a good sign.
Yeah. And that was, and it was, because I want to say that was 8 years in, because that's when I started PizzaJunkiez in 2014. And it was okay, I've learned a lot of lessons. I want to take these lessons and I want to apply it to a new brand. But the difference was I didn't know dick about coffee when I got into the business. I just knew Starbucks could sell a cup of liquid for $4, and I'm like, okay, you can't tell me that you can't find profit in that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I had a deep understanding of pizza when I got into pizza. I had my first pizza delivery job the day that I got my license. Started delivering at Big Kahuna's and then Pizza Hut and Noble Romans for a stretch. So I had a personal understanding of the actual food industry itself. At that point, I had not imagined what would they look like together. I just, part of that building came with a test kitchen that already had a pizza hood in there. And I'm like, okay, let me see what I can do by taking the principles of what I did to create the CoffeeJunkiez menu and apply it to the PizzaJunkiez menu. We had some stumble starts.
Do you test things like that, though? You seem very much like a ready, fire, aim kind of person with small stuff. I mean, not whole business plans, but like if you want to try out a new thing, do you try it and learn from it, or do you try to like predict everything?
Consummate tester.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll test anything. That's because it's not, I did a lot of research But again, you just don't, you can do research all day long, but until you actually put it into practice. Because when I started up CoffeeJunkiez, it was like, I don't know what advertising is going to work, so I'm going to say yes to everything because I want to throw it against the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah.
Another lesson that I learned in the whole process, like advertisers are not your friends. Like they just want your pocketbook. And as soon as you close your pocketbook, well, that was when I learned you have to learn to say no. Because they almost bled me dry because it was like it was like a drug. Like sooner or later you have to either change mediums or ratchet that down.
And they convince you if you're not advertising, you're definitely going to die.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know that game.
But no, it was. I've always fail early and often. Just don't take down the business as you're testing. And I knew that. I mean, obviously, about like even in venture capital. I mean, they'll bet on 100 businesses. They just need 1 or 2 to be home runs, and the rest of them can be chalked up as losses. When you're testing, okay, most tests are going to fail. A
lot of people in business, though, like have this ego fear that, it's going to ruin their reputation if they have too many failures, even if they're small. And I don't think there's any evidence for that. People don't really remember anything in business that doesn't work.
Yeah, but I'll bring that back. No, but I'm going to bring that back to personal. When you're in your 20s, you care about what everybody thinks about you. When you're in your 40s, you don't give a fuck what anybody thinks about you. When you're in your 60s, you realize they weren't thinking about you anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so the people have short attention spans. You can. I so many failures over the first 10 years.
Yeah.
Nobody's busting my balls about any failure I made in the first 10 years. Not another 10 years later. No, people aren't thinking of. That's how I became comfortable with putting myself out there on social media, because I realized I could put out a bad piece of content. A month later, it's buried under 30 other pieces of content, and nobody gives a shit about it anyway.
Right. You'd be lucky if it went viral.
Exactly.
It'd probably help you.
And you laugh at the shit that does go viral.
Right. Yeah. That's so true. Oh, man, that's... There's this question that I always have, and I haven't answered this one yet. I can't tell how long it takes before consistency is turns into like beating a dead horse. Because, there's some things you could do and you test them out, but they're not going to pop off. Mm-hmm. But if you stick with it, then it could become like one of your biggest revenue creators. So how do you tell how long do you need to be consistent before you're just trying to make something work that's a bad idea? That's one I haven't figured out.
Yeah, that's a pretty profound question. Because about like with anything, the only reason we're here having this conversation today is my belief. Like, CoffeeJunkiez should not exist. None of the shit that I am in right now should exist. It has been nothing but belief that I'm walking a path that is worth the stretch, and believing in the bigger vision of what. So I don't know when, because we've had many things that, and like through the menu, we'll assess the menu over a 6-month period. And I'm like, well, I put 6 things on the menu, and we've looked over the last year, and our biggest sellers are still our biggest sellers. And the things that I introduced new are not selling, and it caused us to bring new items in that we're bringing in for base items. So cut them. We can't, sooner or later, you call no joy on a small test. But on the bigger overall, it's just that belief, that faith that I'm walking the right path that's been the only thing that's gotten me up every day, is like, because it's asinine. Like 99% fail. Like, why would anybody take those odds? Belief.
Yeah.
Faith.
Yeah. I agree. I don't see very many things fail, actually, by definition. I see a lot of people quit on things.
Yes.
They just weren't there yet. I don't know how long it would have taken, but you just weren't there yet.
And that's the book, what, 3 Feet from Gold? I mean, that's you're going to keep digging, and it's just the question of, are you going to keep digging? I mean,
I used to say I've never seen anything fail until COVID and the government got their hands into when you could open and not. Now I have to say a very few times because now I have seen businesses and had a business fail that was nobody quit on it. The government said you have to shut down now,
dude.
Which is it's madness.
Well, and I mean, and don't get me wrong, because in some respects I don't pay attention to history, and in I do pay attention to history. January of 2020, if you would have told me the shit that was going to happen within the next 6 months, I would have been like, this individual needs a padded cell.
Yeah, right.
Like they're.
I still don't believe it.
No, I'm still. I cannot.
I tell you what, I can't shake. I can't shake that feeling in my stomach when I was ordered by the government to close my businesses. It's not that I agreed or disagreed. I hadn't even gotten to that yet because I'm a person that likes real quantifiable information. I hadn't even gotten that far yet, but just the fact that they could, it shook me.
Yeah,
I was like, hold on.
I thought that you thought this was America.
I was like, what country am I in?
Exactly.
Is the back of this letter red? What is this? That was madness.
No,
I still don't know what to think about it.
Well, and
I remember thinking specifically, like, at the very least, I hope that we get this power back from them. I hope they don't get to keep this power.
No, and it was that power has always been there. They just never flexed it in that manner, and now it's been exposed. Like, because I mean, like, we're not. You think you own your home? Quit paying your property taxes. They're going to show you who owns your home. Right. I mean, you think you're free? Quit paying your taxes. You'll find out whether you're free. We are not the free country that everybody. It just happens to be that what I won't take away is that we still offer a better opportunity. We should still be more grateful than being born in 99% of the rest of the world in general. But they showed you what kind of power they had, because I've been screaming for a long time that entrepreneurship is trying to break away from those ties and those chains of just the 9-to-5 grind. But the government is not just going to let you, they're an entrepreneur, so now they're free and they can pave their own path and strike their own. They will drown you in paperwork. They will bury you in regulation. They have 1,000 ways to put their thumb on you to make sure that they still have control of you. It is that 1% that is able to actually break away from that to attain that level of freedom. But it's almost like you're not guaranteed happiness. You're just guaranteed the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah, it's in the pursuit, isn't it?
Yes, but that's the whole point. They don't. You get up every day because you are pushing towards to get to freedom, but they don't want you to actually get to freedom.
Yeah, I don't think the government would be happy if there were too many Elon Musks rolling around.
No, and don't, because thought about on that level too. We would have absolute anarchy and chaos if this country was built on everybody being an entrepreneur. If everybody thought for themselves, and if everybody bucked the system, we would have absolute anarchy. I mean,
somebody's got to work.
That's the whole point. I mean, it takes, and you got to appreciate what every piece is, because it's what makes the entire overall go round in general. Everybody's got their place, and that's where I said, I mean, there was a time where I was happy just being the labor.
Yeah, for sure. Me too. Clocking out and clocking in. There's something definitely of great value there.
Yes.
There's something if you want a happy life too. I mean, you can structure it around somebody else's time card.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I advise it.
Yeah.
That was when I left Chrysler and took the buyout, I found out that I was quote unquote inspiring people to take control of their own life, and I found out other people were like taking the buyout. And I'm like, no, don't follow my path. Don't.
Yeah.
One, I knew that I had something started. CoffeeJunkiez was about a year and a half old when I actually left Chrysler.
Right. That's a decent plan.
Yeah. And I mean, and if you're 20 years old and you haven't already like found your way into a career or a large company that you have the ability to provide a good life for yourself, like maybe that's a different story. But I can look backwards and say that, like, I made a mistake. I made an emotional decision. Had I stayed at Chrysler, I would be 9 months away from retirement right now with full pension, full benefits, full health insurance. I made an emotional decision, and I can look back and say that it was a wrong decision. And this roller coaster ride, while I have mentally learned and grown, the devastation that's in the path of it, even in the success of it, like, dumb move. Like, yeah.
Do you regret it?
I don't regret it because I don't regret. But I am very introspective, and that's where I want, I mean, like, I don't want to BS people. I want to be real, and it was a mistake. I should not. I literally had just shy of 14 years. Like, I had an easy 75 to 100K a year, good seniority, like the whole company is going to go to pot before I had over 90% of the entire corporation underneath me. I had access to the best jobs, and once I pulled my heart off my sleeve, I could have went back and ran to get back into the union if that's the direction that I wanted to go. But I had a family, and I took a huge risk, and at the end of the day, it cost me my family. And it caused some suffering through those years that was not necessary. It was a mistake. I'm just being honest.
That's great.
I don't want to regret because I'm not going to beat myself up.
I'll bet you there's a shitload of people that had an awesome job that you created for them that would disagree with you. There's probably a lot of people in the community, and the community as a whole, not just this community, but several communities that had a higher added value to their culture because of the things you created that would certainly disagree with you that it was a mistake. And I personally, my bias is for the adventure and the struggle. And so I'll probably just disagree with you. I'm glad you took that huge risk that maybe it wasn't reasonable.
And don't get me wrong, because reasonable is definitely not a word I would use to describe myself.
But hey, if you ever watch when you or someone else takes a risk, that's part of it. If you weigh it out, if you actually know what you're doing, nobody jumps.
Well, and I mean, would you agree that you and I probably do not process risk the same way the average person processes risk?
I'm sure I don't. I look for it.
I'm
like, this looks way too chill. Nothing could go wrong. I'm not doing it. Like, I want to see some shit that might explode. Let's go this way. But I didn't have a taste for that. My first business was sort of like a taste for that, because I planned, and I was going to do the administration. It was a bar, nightclub. Something I knew nothing about. Didn't even go to bars. I was 28 years old. And
really?
Yeah. I mean I knew things about, like, the top end of the business, but I couldn't make a drink, run a bar, never served a table. I did, like, skilled labor.
Okay.
And not skilled labor. But yeah, dude, immediately the whole plan didn't work out, and I had to, like, get in there and start running shit. I was like, wow, this is a mess. And I would put everything on the line, of course. Mm-hmm. So you can't not do it.
Yeah.
Can't quit. But ever since then, man, I like that. I like painting myself into a corner, forcing myself to grow.
And
personally,
it's something that I have been struggling with here lately. And
I'm doing it less now that I'm getting older.
Well, and that's what the thing is because that I'm becoming a little bit risk adverse. I'm not willing to put my balls on the chopping block like I was in the younger years.
Sure.
But the younger years was totally based on, show me an example of somebody else that's done it. They're not special. So if somebody can do it, right, I know that it can be done. And that was where my road struck out on, is that I read so many books that I'm like, this is an example that these guys actually did it without totally blowing out all of the rules. So I know it can be done. And it's just a matter of how much effort are you actually going to put into, and what sacrifices are you willing to make in order to actually achieve the result.
Yeah, that's such good advice. And I remember when that happened for me. I was working my way up this company, and I finally got to this. I didn't become part of the deal, but like I got in the room with all of the territory managers, like the top people that worked for their whole lives, the most talented, most competent people in the company, to give me some kind of award. And I got to meet all of them. And they were all just as big a dumbasses as everybody else. And I'll never forget sitting there watching these people in their $3,000 suits who just had nothing exceptional. I was like, oh my God, this is a game.
Yeah, if they can do it.
Everybody's the same. There's no special people at the top.
Absolutely.
That was a big aha moment for me. It was like young 20s. And yeah, thanks for the award. And then I quit. Like, well, if you can do it, I can do it.
I mean, even inside of Chrysler, man. And I mean, because I really try and come back to those roots on the small things, but like the ascension that I watched, and if anybody hears this, I mean, like if you've climbed inside of Chrysler, I'm probably not talking about you. This has been a lot of years removed, but I would watch the most dipshit supervisors become area managers, and then start ascending, and I'm like, I know you're not. I could do your job with my eyes closed.
Yeah,
and they are still able to ascend. So it was like it's not for the special few that are just like highly capable.
Nope. And it's not like we're making fun of people right now. I feel like we're trying to communicate to every person like you are just as special as the people you think that are better than you.
No, that's because that's always been, it's like I want to be real, but my message truly is like, if I can do it, you can do it. It's just a question of, are you willing to endure the pain? Are you willing to make the sacrifice? Are you willing to develop the discipline?
Stick to the plan long enough.
It truly is. That's the principles are very basic. It's not rocket science. So when everybody's like, I got the secret, like you're going to be real disappointed when they tell you the secret. It's not about that. It's about the execution of those very simple principles for an extended amount of time.
Yeah, that's it. I call it PDR, personal developmental resolve. You've mentioned a couple of times something about a book. This is new to me. What are you doing?
I've been talking about this for a couple of years, but at this point in my life, I really try not to let things get under my skin. But there's been a constant that gets under my skin, and it has to do with this day and age of social media.
Oh, you're writing a critique piece.
It's not. It's the real, like, these entrepreneurs that are online talking shit and lying to you about this glamorous life. They're full of shit. Yeah. That is not real entrepreneurship.
The Ponzi schemes.
Yes. Yeah. And then you have the guys that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. They're 20, 25, 30 years in, and like they're iconic. They are great. But they have forgotten what they actually did in year 1 through 10 to actually be able to get to 20, 25, and 30. And when I say forgotten, it's real easy to talk about being positive all of the time when you got $100 million in the bank and you're riding around in your Lamborghini and you're flying to your yacht. Mm-hmm. So when you're 30,000 foot in the air and telling the guy that's 3 years in, just be positive, I'm like, dude, you're not helping him.
Yeah. No,
like he's in it.
Plus, they usually want you to pay them $2,500 to get their secret. I'm like, hold on, if you have $300 million and you're willing to share your secret with this poor kid, why does he got to pay 20% of his annual salary for it?
Yep. Right. Well, I mean, and don't get me wrong, you go the other direction. Like, because I'm all about the free information that you can find out there.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, I mean, if you're not willing, I've never been afraid to pay for information. Like
Sure.
paying for information is the shortcut to get, if there's a hack, pay for the information.
Well, but when somebody has something to sell you, they don't show you a picture of their shiny car.
No, exactly.
They tell you what they have to sell you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't sell me a Bugatti for $2,500. Like, that persuasive argument doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? So I feel like we're talking about the same people. Like, those people are full of shit.
Yeah.
They don't. The only reason they have a Bugatti is because they talked enough of you dumbasses and they give them $2,500.
Well, and I mean, and that's the new thing too, is that like it used to be so hard to truly find a business coach, and then business coaching became its own economy, and then selling and packaging information became its own economy because e-com was such an exploding thing. And I don't want to take away that there's some really good coaches out there. I've got one. There are some really good information out there. I've paid for a lot of it, but there's just so much bullshit out there too. But the whole point of, I honestly wish that I would have already written the book, because like the business turned 18 this year. I want to write the book while my feelings about how to go from 0 to $1 million, how to go from day one to the 10-year mark, which is, that is the major milestone. It's like, I've seen some people that have accomplished great things in 5 years. I'm quite sure they will make it to year 10, 15 and beyond. But most people that are like, oh, well, I've been in business a couple years. I'm like, cool, dude, I'm betting against you, because the odds are you won't make it to year 10, because only 1% makes it to year 10. Really? I want to write the book on what it takes to go from 0 to $1 million, what it takes to go from day one to getting to year 10. And then ideally, once that book is out, then I will be looking at, okay, what did it take for me to get from year 11 to year 20? So I want to make sure that those thoughts and feelings and the experience that I went through to go through that first 10 years, that I truly get that down, and what were the mistakes and what were the lessons going through the whole development period.
Well, I'll definitely read it. I'll look forward to reading it, because one thing I like about you is you're a truth seeker, and you're always trying to articulate things honestly before sensitively, which some people might feel is a downfall, but I'm a truth seeker myself, so I really enjoy people who know something that try to tell it to you like as true as they possibly can.
The only battle that I internally deal with is that I understand I can't project myself onto other people. I can't expect them to be me. But me, I'm impatient. Like, so dancing around, you are slowing down, getting from point A to point B. So, like, the quicker that you get rid of all of the fluff, the quicker that you get rid of all of the tact and talk about what is true, is the quicker that you can get to an answer. And yes, and that's where I end up ruffling people's feathers, because I'm like, no, I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass.
Well, it's great, man. Sometimes ruffling your feathers is what you need.
Oh, and I mean, don't get me wrong. Over the years, I've gotten pretty good at coming back and smoothing them back over. But yeah.
Oh man, how important do you think it is for a person in business to like manage themselves, to work on themselves, their personal progress?
I mean, it's. I go back to my core values on that. I mean, respect, rapport, reputation. So, because you got the one side of it where it's like, I know that I have actively managed my reputation, and that's the only reason people have been willing to help me. But then I look at the other side of it, and I'm like, I'm 48. I did not throw myself into personal development until my late 30s, early 40s. And I look back and I'm like, you might not have suffered all the pain that you suffered in the first 10 years had you paid more attention to the personal development side of it in that first 10 years. Like, I did a massive amount of studying leading up to getting in business. And then I was like, okay, let's put it into practice and let's just figure it out along the way. And it was after all the failure that I went back and was like, well, maybe I don't know what I thought I did know, and maybe I better just start from square one all over again. And when I truly found that passion for personal development, when I found that passion for reading, things started to change internally, where it was like, I think everybody has this milestone that they cannot feel successful or great until they have $1 million in the bank. And that if that is what has to define your personal homeostasis, like that's not, one, you're seeking the wrong thing. Two, you're really going to be a miserable individual. So I found that personal calm and satisfaction in myself every day internally, and it not being based on my bank account, and it not being based on whether the business succeeded or failed in that day. It really came back to me and how I looked at myself in the mirror and how I felt about myself and my efforts and my discipline.
Good,
and
yeah. I think that's the same experience I have, man. And I think now it's probably more important than ever for young people because of the extra level of, critique out there. Like everybody gets to critique and see every moment of your business life. So man, you got to have some thick skin now to decide to be an entrepreneur. And it's a time of thick skin that isn't very abundant.
Yes, but I think that the thick skin is like,
you got to be comfortable with yourself.
Yeah. I don't think that it applies to entrepreneurship. I think that it just applies to life. I think that, if you want, you can't, there's nothing wrong with feeling emotion. I mean, it took me a long time to get to the point of understanding, everything starts with a feeling. But it doesn't have to stay there. There's nothing wrong with testing it up against logic to see, is this a real feeling? Your brain is not always right. You can feel things. That does not necessarily mean that it's a correct feeling. And then you have to gauge the level of intensity of that feeling. And it's having thick skin in general I think leads to a healthier perspective as you're going through life in general.
I agree with that 100%. Yeah, dude, I'm excited for this book. So how do you let's circle back to the beginning of this real quick. What's your 5-year plan?
And don't get, it's like I go back to that what he called it, entrepreneurs. I laugh about it because I know that when I first developed my 5-year plan that I didn't know dick. I was not an entrepreneur in any way, shape, or form. I was a entrepreneur, and it was let's just put this out there. I just had no clue what the actual work was going to be in order to achieve that.
I'm sure you have some idea what direction you want things to move in now.
Now, most definitely, because I mean, and they say, if your vision doesn't scare you, it's not big enough. I really do. I dream big and do. My vision, because the numbers make sense, but I have not put a date on it. CoffeeJunkiez and PizzaJunkiez will be a national brand. It's just a matter of time. It's easy math. 50 stores, 50 states, 2,500 stores, average of $1 million per store, $2.5 billion a year. It's a given. It's going to happen. It's just a question of the actual timeline. I have that's this last year, and that was another thing that I had to grapple with, that you're not always going to grow. And sometimes you're going to grow in ways that people don't see or understand. I had a couple years ago that one of the guys commented on my social media posts that it was like, this dude ain't shit. He just owns a coffee shop. And I'm like, you just don't see the work that I'm actually doing to get to today. This in 2023 was completely foundational because I know the scale that I'm looking at, and I knew the foundation that had to be there in order to actually support that scale. So I am looking at minimum of a dozen operations opening up this next year. I would love to get ahead of myself and talk about 20 or 30, But I also know that you can kill a franchise really quick by growing too fast. And I'm sitting there, I see that with a process, with money, with resources, that you can exponentially grow. But I have never opened up 12 operations in 1 year, so I'm not going to kid myself and think that it's going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of documentation and a lot of systemization. And once I have that mastered and down, okay, well, then I already know the foundation is there to actually support 12 more operations coming on. Now it's about the process of continually opening up operations. And once I have that process nailed, and once I have the support staff in place, then it will be ready for 20 or 30 or 40 operations per year. And then it's just about repeating that process. And then we get back into and I'm sure you'll appreciate this. Profit is boring. Startup is exciting. So being an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, is a lot more boring than it is exciting. The exciting time, your bank account is taking a wild ride with you.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Yes.
100%. You know, it's not that different from life. If you look back over life, like, think of the best, most, like, wild times of your life that mean the most to you in your memories, and they're always the hardest. It's never like when you were the most comfortable. You don't remember that shit.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter.
No. So, no, I mean, I'm looking at this where I'm like, okay, I have learned a lot. I've endured a lot of pain. But there's a lot of experience there. There's a lot of wisdom gained. And it's just like,
I love that feeling. Oh man. When I'm way over the budget, and I finally get this damn thing together and we're about to open and it's make or break. Like, I had this plan to where, like, I needed to turn some money around in 6 months, but now I've went over budget and things are always harder than you think. So now, like, I've actually got to bring in some money in 2 months. That feeling, man, you can't beat that. Just staring the beasts in the eyes.
That's what I was about to say. Is when your back is against the wall, is when you truly find out what you're made of.
Yeah. I love it. And you're talking about doing it like 30 times a year.
Well, and don't get me wrong, because no, I'm not.
Right, I know what you mean.
But I want to explain for anybody else that's listening, like, no.
You're going to come up with a process.
Exactly.
That makes that happen.
I'm not, and I will, because it took me.
You'll still be on the phone, man, at least. You'll be like.
True. Yeah. But, you have to learn those lessons as you're actually going through the process. And I look at it and I'm like, the concept is so clear to me now. But I look back at all of those years and I'm like, you moron. And the easiest way for me to describe it is that I'm a recovering control freak.
Yeah, that's it, though. I think I don't tell people this who are not yet entrepreneurs, but when people that are already entrepreneurs that are struggling with getting any bigger or doing anything more, they ask me, like, what the secret is. Obviously, there's no fucking secret. But the one thing I've noticed is the hardest for people, that makes the biggest difference, is even having the ability to have a bigger vision. Like, because if I'd asked Jason in your first 3 months of owning CoffeeJunkiez, can you envision opening 30 stores a year? Like, maybe you could have dreamt of it, but you couldn't actually see what that looks like. Exactly. But now you can.
Yep.
So, like, your progress always follows a little behind what you're capable of envisioning. So, man, spend time on envisioning your next step.
But I still go back to that. Pain teaches you more lessons than anything else.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
you remember them for sure.
Yeah, because it forces growth.
Yeah.
I mean, even if mutation, it does actually force growth. I mean, it forces change.
Yeah, you're right about that. True in all mammals.
No. At the end of the day, though, because we're going back to, if anybody's looking for that answer, like a great book out there, it's Who Not How. Like, I can look and say, this is what I need to do. And then the first thing I do is come back and say, do I want to be responsible for that? If it sounds like something that I can really, like, get into and sink my teeth into and I might actually enjoy, okay, maybe I don't need somebody else. But if it's just recognizing that I know the business needs it, but I don't have any desire, it's just my job to find somebody else that does have that desire. And that's been where the growth has come from, is that I am barely dangerous when it comes to technology, but not Matt, because I went out and I found him.
Yeah.
And it was like, and he salivates on that stuff.
That's great.
So it was I don't understand all of this, but I understand the business has to have this.
Yeah.
So I went out and found somebody that is his thing. He integrates all of the technology into the operation.
That's great. Yeah. The business will expose your weaknesses, and the strong people are willing to admit them.
Absolutely.
Man. Well, I don't want to drag you out too long, but is there anything you wanted to bring up or to add?
Brother, your podcast, and I was just my big thing is even on mine, it's like a conversation, go with the flow, and actually see where it goes in general.
I'm glad you're here to do it, and it's so nice because in these tempting times within our culture, it's so tempting for all conversations to wrap themselves around politics and cultural things and all that. It's kind of nice to not do that for a minute.
And I've struggled with it. And when I say I've struggled with it, I have not consumed any politics in at least 3 years. I haven't consumed any news in at least 3 years. It's not that I'm surrounded by people that they let it drag them in, so I'm still aware. But I got pissed that all of the propaganda, that it was 98% noise, so I just deduced I'm going to lose 2% information to cut out the 98% noise, and I'm a happier individual. So no, I can remember a time where I felt, I have strong convictions in general, but I felt very strong about being in the know, in the bit by bit every minute. And I just realized that it was just negativity that took my focus away from what was most important, whether it be personal or business in general. And then we get into the, come on, man, I sell coffee and pizza, and I want to sell coffee and pizza to Democrats and Republicans and independents. And I can't subscribe. I hate both sides equally. So it's
your pizza tastes good to everybody.
That's exactly it right there. And I've seen businesses take political stances, and the vast majority of the time, like, they ain't got no business doing that. And I'm not on a social crusade. I think I have a healthy perspective to offer people as far as mental and physical health as an individual to live your life and live your best life. But I'm not going to pick a side and tell anybody that they should believe one side or the other, because I've also been the same person to tell you that it's a two-headed snake, and it's just not my.
My only political advice to anybody ever is to learn to tell yourself the truth and listen to that motherfucker.
And that's the thing is, like, if you really get right down to it, like, you don't need somebody else's advice to know what the right thing is to do. It's about the discipline. Because if I tell you that you need to take better care of yourself, you're not an unintelligent individual. You know you need to take better care of yourself, and you don't need me to tell you. You just need to listen to your own opinion, because you know you need to take better care of yourself. That's what I'm an advocate for. I am such an advocate for good mental and physical health. And in my business coaching, you just be kind to your future self. There are so many things that you are big and strong, and you just don't think about it when you're in your 30s and 40s. And I'm like, but what you do to yourself in your 30s and 40s is going to have a direct impact on your quality of life in your 50s, 60s, and 70s. And to mental health, physical health, dental health, and gut health. And I'm like, as a kid, I wasn't real big about brushing my teeth. I do every day now, because I look at my dad and I'm like, 70 and 80, like, I still want to be able to enjoy a good steak. So take care of your teeth.
That's so true. I look at my 20-year-old self, and I I put this body through whatever. Never even considered it. I'm like, it'll live.
Yep. Well, and I really do. I mean, and it's like, I've learned a lot from both of my parents, but probably not the lessons that they wanted me to learn.
Sure.
Because my dad was I think it was amateur, semi-pro. But dude used to be Hulk. I mean, like big, and he
like muscular development.
Oh yes, like freaking huge. So he like loved to strut his stuff. Like he would lift whole transmissions off the ground and throw them up on his bench. And yeah, well, now he can barely walk. And I'm like, no, I find I'll pull into the shop and I'll have a carload of stuff. And I'll act like the old man, and I'll come out there and I'll be like, can you be $1 come out here and help me with this? And I'm like, I'm fully capable of lifting it, but I'm sitting here going every 50, 100 pounds times 5, 10, 15, 20. Okay, that shit's going to start catching up with me. I've got lower back issues, and I am not trying to cause myself a bunch of physical pain 10, 20 years from now. And I'm thinking about that every day. What's my future self think of what I'm doing to myself physically or mentally today, because you're going to get into those later years and you're going to wish that you'd paid more attention to it.
Yeah, it's good wisdom for sure. If you could just go back and tell yourself.
Think about that. Like,
yeah.
You think about, well, even now at our age, like if I could go back and tell myself some key things at 20 years old,
oh yeah,
I probably could have completely altered the course of my entire life. Like, I hated reading. Like, I don't think that I read a full book until I was, 22, 23 years old, because I became fascinated with the stock market and I wanted to understand it. So I went on a tear in my 20s and read like 20 books on the stock market.
It must have been rough getting through school, though.
Oh, I mean, I dropped out. So like,
okay.
I started working full time at 14, and it was because it was within walking distance. And then at 15, I was able to buy a moped. I was able to get a little further out. At 16, I got a car. I had a little bit of freedom. And by 17, I'm like, what the hell do I need? They're not teaching me nothing. I'm ready to get out and earn. My dad was like, well, if you're going to drop out of school, you're going to start paying rent. And I'm like, well, if I'm paying rent, I'm not paying you rent. So, no, I mean, I was 10th grade. I was out. And don't get me wrong. I'm not an advocate for dropping out of school. I did have to go back to get my GED in order to actually get my job at Chrysler. I am not being an advocate for shying away from education.
Oh, no, you're plenty educated, just not the college core path.
Right there. And I don't, I don't have the debt that comes with that. And then there's that real cool word, autodidact. And that's like, I am not self-made. It took a lot of people to help me get to where I am, but I am self-taught. And it was a personal learning journey that I struck out on. And I am like so grateful that for whatever it is inside of me, clung to it, because I am a solid 4 years into, I wake up every day and I start my day with 3 cups of coffee, and I read through those 3 cups of coffee, and I have tore through hundreds of books.
Yeah, I was going to say, man, like one of the first times we really hung out very long was at, well, our men's group that we meet sometimes. You brought me a book. Just right after the jump, you're like a book advocate now.
Well, I mean,
but I appreciate that, by the way.
But a book that's relevant to the mountain you're trying to climb.
Oh, sure.
That's the whole thing.
It was an appropriate book.
Exactly.
It wasn't like some, random Steinbeck novel or something.
Well, if I advocate for something, it's that, like, you're going to fall in life. You're going to struggle in life. Isn't it better to actually search out the information before you actually stumble and fall?
I think so.
Like, you're going to save yourself a lot of pain if you start, like, priming those muscles and those mental weapons before the actual fall, because the fall will likely come in some form.
Oh, for sure.
So start arming yourself early and often, and you get through those seasons of life faster.
That's true. Yeah, man, if I could just go back. I think learning wisdom and seeking truth. The two things, if a young person could do to be ahead of the game.
And my conviction on the truth thing, business coach, and he was one of his books, and I'm horrible with the actual title, and he taught me a lot about energy, and that most people think that the highest form of energy is thought. Truth is a higher form of energy than thought. And it's like those, so simple yet so profound that I'm like, if you're going to move through life, understand you are energy moving through life, that everybody has a level of vibration. It's a question of, are you operating at a negative or a positive level of vibration, and how high of a frequency are you vibrating at? And truth, I mean, it's more important than everything.
I agree. At the very least, it puts the reality on your side.
Yes, exactly. And don't get me wrong, I get it. Some things are based in perspective, and it's really hard to pinpoint what is actually true. But there are certain.
But you can tell when it's definitely not true.
Correct.
That's something to avoid.
And then we get into the politics, the political side of it, where it's just like there is so much that they frame as true, and it is not true in any way, shape, or form. And
it's true. I do have people come to my business in one way or another, in some form or fashion, to try to tell me what I should be doing, thinking, saying, or supporting. And I'm so lucky and grateful that I've always just stuck to my guns and said, no politics in this business.
It's
not even if you hide it underneath those cute little hungry people. Still not doing it. I'll just write my own check. Let's leave it at that.
No, and don't get me wrong. I mean, I enjoy a good political debate. I think it's just most of the time people are so set in what they have been brainwashed to believe that they don't want to have an intellectual conversation and be open to a different perspective that might actually change their thoughts. And I think that, I think that this generation that we're dealing with right now battles with that.
They don't have the conversation. They don't have the discussion.
Well,
you don't enter a conversation or a discussion with the intent to just push your fucking agendas on people. Those aren't conversations.
No, and I think that they also think that they're under this fallacy that the person they are today in their 20s, that they're going to be that same person in their 40s, and they're not. Like
especially with delayed maturation going on. You know, there's a lot of people that are 20 that haven't done anything difficult yet.
Correct.
But I'm not knocking that one way or the other. I'm just saying that doesn't give you a great political perspective.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's just basic, because it's not a knock. It's like, I want to look at somebody at 20 and be like, dude, don't expect people to believe what comes out of your mouth. Like, you don't have any wisdom.
We were 20.
Yeah.
We're not different than you. We're just ahead of you.
Exactly. And it's it's not an insult.
I was the same idiot you are. I remember.
And that's what I said. I can look back now and be like, I mean, it's not that I wasn't on the right path, because again, I'm always willing to work hard, but my perspective on things have just changed so much over the last 20 and 30 years. But it has been about experience and seeking information and making my own mistakes and learning from other people's mistakes. That's the bigger one right there, is that in our 20s, it's like, old man, old timer, you don't know, it's different now. And I'm like, no, I'm realizing, no, it really wasn't much different at all. I just had to endure that pain and find out myself, my own way, that no, the principles still hold.
I don't think I'd ever tell a 20-year-old to listen to me, but I'd tell them, do what you want to do, but just try to listen.
Mm-hmm. Be open to.
Yeah. Find out. Just tell yourself, I might have something to learn from somebody, and just go for it.
Well, and I mean, I can learn something from everybody, even the idiots, even the assholes. Even the crooks, like
Oh, yeah.
I can learn something from anybody and everybody, and I always do keep an open mind like that. That I can find somebody to be like, I don't like you, or I can only take you in small doses, but the small doses I take you in, I'm going to learn something from you, because I'm not saying that your perspective is illegitimate. Agree or disagree, I'm still willing to be open to that perspective, because it is a change your perspective, change your life.
That's right, yeah. The judgments don't really help. I try not to make them, really. I'll catch myself doing like, wow, that's not going to help me.
Exactly.
Let's just see what's going to happen.
And that we get into that hypocrisy. I don't want to be a hypocrite. And then my business coach gets on me and he's like, well, don't worry about being a hypocrite. Be open to your mind changing. But
yeah.
I don't judge because I don't want people judging me. That's like, I am far from perfect.
Sure.
I have made so many mistakes that I'm like,
yeah.
I'm not looking to be judged. So if I don't want to be judged, I better not get caught judging others. And I'm mindful of that.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm a risk taker. Always have been.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you break shit. Like things break. And
Yep.
you break yourself sometimes. And then you do some dumb shit. And yeah, at least I do. I'll take responsibility. I can't judge anybody.
No, I don't have any business judging anybody. I have made far too many mistakes. And
I've never wanted to anyway. It's really not any fun.
it's not.
I don't know why people...
There's no purpose out of it.
Yeah. I think people do it to make themselves feel better.
And that right there, and I think that part of...
It doesn't work, though.
I've always kept my ego in check. Like, I've long said, like, confident in myself and my abilities, but I don't let my ego get so far out there on the ledge that I can just get my head whacked off, where it's like, no, I know what I'm capable of doing, but as soon as you're leading with ego, like, well, it's just, I don't believe that it's overly high character, and I really do try and...
It's tricky keeping that ego quiet.
It is.
It's
it is, because I'm not saying it's not there. It's
especially when you get some levels of success.
Yeah.
That's when it gets harder. That'll be in your like 10 to 20 book, probably.
Yep. No, and that, because the funny thing is I've got a couple people that are around me now that I'm like you won't be in this book, like, but you'll be in the second book.
Yeah.
The 11 to 20 you will, because I have learned a tremendous amount from them. But I think that that's the other side, where you'll see these young kids at 18, 20 years old, and they're like, but they're my friends. But they're not going to be your friends in 10 or 20 or 30 years. I've seen some college relationships transfer into long-term relationships, but I have not seen many relationships from your teens transfer into... as you learn, develop, and grow, you end up becoming a different person completely from where you were in your teens. And
yeah, hopefully you're not still hanging out with your high school buddies doing high school things.
Well, I mean, they make movies on that shit.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. I guess there's worse things.
Yes.
It does look fun. Oh, that's funny. Well, man, I think that's a great spot to end.
Brother, thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for coming. It was a good conversation. Well, I know for sure we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely.
Because you have me coming on your podcast.
Oh, okay. So I know. That's because
honestly,
that's when the roles are able to reverse, and I'm able to hear a little bit more about your actual overall journey in itself.
That would be fun. So on the other side of a desk.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Right on.
Brother, thank you very much for bringing me on.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Yep. Have a good.